All right, so here we are, and we're going to go through example number 2, and then we'll do another example for example number 3. So example 2, Mr. Jackson is golfing one fine Sunday morning. He stops when he gets to a bridge over a river to enjoy the scenery. When he looks down, he sees an alligator in the river below. He drops a rock from the bridge to see what the alligator will do. He is 50 feet above the water. So for the first step, we need to identify each value of the variables, okay? So we're dealing with feet, so A is going to be negative 32 feet per second. Velocity, okay, when we drop something, we're not adding any additional force. So our velocity is just going to be 0 because we're not adding any additional force to change that velocity. The only thing that's acting on the rock at this point is the gravity pulling it down. Okay, and our h sub 0 is where we start, or where Mr. Jackson is on the bridge at 50 feet above the water. So we fill in our formula, and we have 1/2 times our a value of negative 32. And that's always with t squared plus 0t plus 50. Okay, and if we simplify this, 1/2 times negative 32 is negative 16 t squared plus 0t plus 50. Okay, so we go to our graph on Desmos and graph that. Okay, and there's our graph in our sketch. So let's sketch that on our paper. So we have our graph, 1, 2, 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Or we're just going to go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, we're there. We're a little bit before negative 2 and a little bit before negative 2. And there's approximately what our graph looks like. Again, doesn't have to be the best, but just a little bit. Okay. So once you have that, you can go ahead and move on to questions 4, 5, and 6. And as always, pause this video if you need to clarify something or want to rework something or ask questions as well. Okay, so number 4, how high is the rock after 0.5 seconds? So after a half a second. So we're going to plug in 0.5 for t. So h of 0.5 is equal to negative 16 times 0.5 squared. Now, do we need to write 0t? No. So we're going to go ahead and skip that and then plus 50. Okay. Simplifying this, we type it into our calculator and we get 46 feet. Okay. Again, remembering to put our labels when we write our answers. Okay. So then when will the rock hit the water? So that means that our height would be 0. Okay. Now, again, our simplified version, if we took out 0t, would be negative 16t squared plus 50. Okay. If we use that, what method would we be able to use? We could still use quadratic formula, and if you used quadratic formula, that's completely fine. Okay. But for this one, we might have an easier method, and that is square roots. So we subtract 50, get negative 50 is equal to negative 16t squared. Divide by negative 16, and we get 3.125 is equal to t squared. We then take the square root of both sides. The square root of 3.125 is 1.77. So t is equal to 1.77. And again, our unit is seconds. Okay. So after 1.77 seconds, our rock hits the water. Okay. So then, when will the rock be exactly 30 feet above the water? Okay, so again, we're trying to find time. So we would have 30 is equal to, because now that's our height. Our height is now 30 instead of 0. So 30 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 50. Okay, there's two ways that we can do this one. We can subtract 50 and solve by square roots. Or if you prefer quadratic formula, we would subtract 30 and we would get negative 16t squared. We would need 0t and then plus 20 and then quadratic formula that. So 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 20 all over 2 times negative 16. So you can do that, or just solve for t squared here. So subtract 50 and we get negative 20 is equal to negative 16t squared. We divide by negative 16 and we get 1.25 is equal to t squared. Take the square root and we get t is equal to 1.12 seconds, which should be the same thing that you get when you solve by the quadratic formula. Okay, so that's the end of example number 2. What I want you to do now is, if you have not already done so, I want you to try example number 3 and ask questions if you have them.